The cold arrival of the space station was alive with lights and noise. Ships came and went. Traders shouted their prices, and the smell of strange alien food filled the air. In the middle of the busy market, a small alien girl limped slowly between the stalls. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes large and tired, and her right leg was wrapped in old cloth. She carried a small basket with cheap trinkets, little glass beads and carved stones. Every step made her wince, but she kept going, calling out softly. To passers-by, no one stopped to look. Some glanced at her and turned away. Others whispered and laughed. The crowd seemed to swallow her whole. To them, she was invisible. The girl's voice trembled as she tried again and again to sell something. A tall alien merchant waved her away without even looking. Another customer pushed past her as if she wasn't there. She lowered her eyes, holding the basket closer to her chest. The sound of laughter behind her made her walk faster. Her stomach was empty, and the few credits she had left would not buy much food. Still, she kept moving through the crowd. Far across the market, a new figure stepped in, a human man, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a worn jacket and carrying a small bag. His dark eyes scanned the marketplace slowly. Aliens nearby gave him curious or suspicious looks. Humans were rare on this station, and many didn't trust them, but the man didn't seem to care. His steps were calm and steady. Then, his gaze fell on the little alien girl. For a moment, it was as if the rest of the market disappeared for him. The girl noticed him staring and quickly looked away. She had seen that look before. Sometimes it meant trouble, sometimes pity. Either way, it never lasted. She tried to turn down another street, but the human was already walking toward her. Hands gripped the basket tighter when he stopped in front of her. She kept her eyes on the ground. "How much for everything you have?" His voice was low and calm. The girl blinked, thinking she had misheard. "No one ever buys all at once," she whispered. The human smiled faintly. "I am not everyone." She slowly lifted the basket so he could see. They are just beads and stones, not worth much," she said quietly. He looked at each one with interest. "I'll take them," he said, pulling out a handful of credits. It was far more than the trinkets were worth. The girl froze, unsure if it was a trick, but the human placed the credits in her hand without hesitation. "Why?" she asked before she could stop herself. "Because no one else would," he said simply. He gave her a short nod and turned to leave. She watched him walk away, disappearing into the crowd. For a long time she stood there, the weight of the credits in her small hands. No one had ever done something like that for her. She didn't know his name. She didn't know why he had chosen her. But deep inside, something small and warm began to grow. That night, she hid the credits carefully in her sleeping corner. She thought about the human's eyes, the way he had looked at her. She had never been seen like that before, and for the first time in years, she hoped she would see someone again. The first kindness. The next morning, the girl returned to the market earlier than usual. Her basket was almost empty, just a few new trinkets she had gathered from discarded scraps. But her eyes kept scanning the crowd, searching for one face. She didn't know if he would return, but something inside told her he might. Hours passed and the market grew louder. The same merchants shouted their prices. The same customers bargained fiercely. She sold 2 beads to a passing traveler, but her heart wasn't in it. Then she saw him. The human was walking between the stalls, looking at the goods but never stopping for long. When his eyes found hers, a small smile touched his face. She froze, unsure if she should hide or wave, but he walked straight to her. "You're here early," he said, his voice the same calm tone as yesterday. I had more things to sell," she answered softly. He glanced at her basket, then back at her. "Not much left," he said, and she thought he sounded almost amused. Without warning, he reached into his bag and pulled out a small cloth bundle. He placed it in her hands. It was warm and smelled of fresh bread. "For you," he said simply. She stared at it, her fingers tightening around the soft cloth. "You." "Bought this for me?" she asked, her voice almost shaking. "I bought it because you look like you haven't eaten properly in days," he replied. The smell made her stomach twist with hunger. She wanted to eat right there, but she also didn't want to seem greedy. "Eat," he said, as if reading her thoughts, and she did, each bite filling her with warmth she had forgotten existed. When she was done, she whispered a thank you, but the human was already looking around, as if checking the shadows. "You should be careful." "Here," he said quietly. "Some people notice when someone suddenly has more credits than usual." Her heart skipped. She hadn't told anyone about the money, but he was right. She had been watched before. He handed her a small metal coin with strange markings. "This is a come token," he explained. "If you need help, press the center." She looked at the token like it was made of gold. No one had ever given her something to protect herself. "Why are you helping me?" she finally asked. The human paused, then gave a half smile. "Because sometimes the smallest lives are the ones worth the most." And with that, he walked away again. This time, she didn't just watch him go, she decided she would find him again, no matter what. The threat in the shadows, the girl's day started like any other. But something felt different. The market was crowded, yet she sensed eyes following her. She turned her head quickly, but whoever it was blended into the moving crowd. Her injured leg made her slower than the others. She clutched her basket and tried to lose herself between the stalls. The air felt heavier, the noise of the market no longer comforting. Every step she took made her heart beat louder. Then she saw them, two tall alien thugs, both with scarred faces and thick leather jackets. They didn't hide the fact they were following her. One smirked when she looked back. The other cracked his knuckles. Her hands began to shake. She had seen their kind before, debt collectors, thieves, and worse. They thrived on weakness, and she was an easy target. She quickened her pace, turning into a narrow alley between metal walls. The smell of stale air and rotting food hit her nose. Her leg burned with each step. She reached the end of the alley only to find a dead end. A tall metal fence blocked her way. She spun around, and the thugs were already there, blocking the exit. "Well, look at this," one said with a grin. "She's got more than she's telling." The other added, his voice low and threatening. They stepped closer, their shadows covering her. She tried to step back, but the fence pressed against her spine. "Hand over the credits," one growled, "and maybe we let you keep that limp of yours." Her mind raced. If she gave them the money, she would starve. If she refused, she might not survive the alley. Then a voice cut through the tension. It was calm, deep, and carried a weight that made both thugs turn. "That's not yours to take," the human said. He was standing at the alley entrance, one hand in his jacket. His eyes were cold, and though he hadn't drawn a weapon, his presence was enough to make the thugs pause. "Stay out of this, human," one snarled. The human didn't move, but something in the way he looked at them made the air feel sharper. "You should walk away," he said, each word slow and deliberate. For a moment, no one moved. The thugs exchanged glances, and the taller one muttered something under his breath. Finally, they stepped back, brushing past him with angry glares. But they didn't try anything more. When they were gone, the human walked toward the girl. "You all right?" he asked, his tone softer now. She nodded shakily, though her legs still trembled. "I told you," he said, handing her the small token again. "Use it when you're in trouble." This time, she didn't just whisper thank you, she held onto his sleeve for a moment, afraid he might vanish again. The past revealed they sat at a small food stall on the quieter side of the station. The smell of hot broth and fresh bread filled the air. The human had bought 2 bowls, but the girl only stared at hers. She wasn't used to someone giving her food without asking for something in return. He waited patiently, letting her decide if she wanted to speak. After a long silence, she finally began. "I wasn't born here," she said softly, her eyes fixed on the steam rising from the bowl. "My family worked on a mining colony, a cold place far from any big trade routes." Her voice trembled, and she gripped the edge of the table. One day, there was an explosion in the tunnels, she continued. The walls collapsed, and I was trapped under the rocks. She lifted the cloth around her leg, showing deep scars beneath. They pulled me out, but my parents, they didn't make it. The human listened without interrupting, his eyes steady on her. The colony shut down after that, and they sent all the survivors away, she said. No one wanted to take care of a crippled child. Her words were bitter, but her voice carried more sadness than anger. I came here thinking I could work, but I was too slow, too weak. Her hands shook as she lifted the spoon to her mouth. The only way to survive was to sell little things I could find in trash piles. She laughed without joy. Even then, most people just looked past me. The human leaned forward. Slightly, you've survived more than most, he said quietly. Her eyes met his for the first time since she started talking. No, she said, her voice small. I've just kept breathing. He reached into his jacket and placed something on the table. It was a small device, smooth, silver, and shaped to fit in the palm of her hand. This is a translator, he explained. And also a beacon, she picked it up carefully, almost afraid to break it. If you press the side twice, it'll send me a signal, no matter where you are on this station. She looked at him in disbelief. This is for me? She asked. He nodded. You might not believe it, but you're not as alone as you think. Her fingers curled around the device, holding it close to her chest. For a long moment, she couldn't speak. Then she whispered. Why? The human's gaze didn't waver. Because you deserve someone to choose you, he said, and in that moment, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. The offer the next day, the girl stood in the same quiet corner of the market. Her fingers kept tracing the smooth surface of the beacon, hidden in her pocket. She told herself she wasn't waiting for him, but her eyes kept scanning every face. The crowd shifted, and then she saw him walking toward her. This time, she didn't look away. He stopped in front of her, a faint smile on his lips. Come with me, he said simply. She blinked, unsure if she had heard him right. Where? She asked cautiously. My ship, he replied. I have a job for you. She shook her head quickly. I can't work on a ship. I can barely keep up here, she said. But he didn't seem to agree. I don't need you to be fast, he said. I need you to be you. Her brows furrowed, confused. What could I possibly do for you? She asked. You listen, you notice things others don't. And you don't give up, he replied. His words made her chest tighten. No one had ever described her like that before. I'll pay you, feed you, and give you a place to sleep, he continued. All I ask is that you help me keep my ship running and watch my back. The girl's gaze dropped to the ground. It sounded too good to be true. People didn't give without wanting to take more. She remembered every time she had trusted someone and been betrayed. But then she remembered the alley, the bread, and the way he had looked at her. There was no pity in his eyes, only respect. Why me? She asked in a whisper. Because when everyone else looked away, you kept standing, he said. She felt her throat tighten. Slowly she nodded. All right, she whispered. I'll come. They walked together toward the docking bay. The air grew cooler, and the noise of the market faded behind them. Her injured leg slowed her, but he matched his steps to hers without saying a word. When the massive steel doors opened, she saw his ship, old but well kept, with a name painted on the side in bold letters she couldn't read. He led her up the ramp, and for the first time in years, she stepped into a place that might be home. The ramp closed behind them, sealing out the station. She looked around at the small but clean interior. Her heart beat faster, not from fear, but from something else, possibility. The hum of the ship's engines filled the air as they drifted through deep space. For the first time in years, the girl felt safe enough to sleep without one eye open. But safety in space never lasted long. The alarm blared suddenly. A sharp metallic sound that made her heart race. She stumbled into the cockpit where the human was already at the controls. His eyes were fixed on the radar, red dots closing in fast. Pirates, he said in a low voice, her stomach twisted. The human started evasive maneuvers, the ship swaying sharply from side to side. Outside, the darkness lit up with bursts of weapons fire. Metal rang with the sound of hits against their hull. They're trying to disable us, not destroy us. He muttered. That means they want what's inside, she whispered, fear rising in her voice. A loud thud shook the ship, followed by another. They've latched on, the human said, already reaching for a weapon. The hallway lights flickered as the boarding alarm activated. Her instincts told her to hide, but something else held her in place. She watched him check his gear and head toward the cargo bay. I'll hold them off, stay here, he ordered. But she knew if he faced them alone, he might not come back. She looked around desperately and remembered the ventilation shafts running through the ship. Small, narrow tunnels only someone her size could fit into. She climbed in, the metal cold against her hands and knees. Her injured leg ached, but she pushed forward. Following the sounds of voices below, through the vent grates, she saw them, 3 pirates armed with rifles. They were spreading out, searching the ship. The human stood his ground, firing warning shots that forced them to keep their distance. But one pirate was moving toward his blind side. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. She crawled silently to a vent above the cargo bay controls. Her hands trembled as she reached for the emergency pressure release lever. She hesitated only for a second. Then she pulled it. A deafening hiss filled the cargo bay. Loose crates and metal scraps flew toward the partially open airlock. The pirates stumbled, struggling to hold on. The human took his chance, knocking the nearest one out and forcing the others back toward the airlock. With a final shove, he sealed the doors and repressurized the bay. The girl crawled out from the vent, her face pale but determined. The human looked at her, surprised and slightly amused. You just saved my life, he said. She gave a shaky smile. I told you. I can help, she replied. For the first time, she truly believed it. The choice news of the pirate attack spread faster than the ship could travel. By the time they docked at the next station, whispers followed them through the corridors. Some called the human reckless, others called him a hero. But the story that caught the most attention was about the small alien girl who had saved the day. Merchants who had once ignored her now nodded in respect. A few even tried to offer her work jobs with pay far higher than anything she had seen before. For the first time, she was not invisible. For the first time, she could choose her future. That night, she sat on the ramp of the ship, looking at the stars beyond the station's docking ring. The human joined her, holding 2 cups of hot tea. You've got offers, he said, handing her a cup. She took it, the warmth sinking into her hands. They all want you, he continued. You could take any of those jobs and live comfortably here. She looked at him, her eyes searching. His face, and leave the ship? She asked. He shrugged. It's your choice. She thought of the cold nights on the market floor. She thought of the way strangers had looked past her as if she wasn't alive. And she thought of the human, the one person who had seen her, chosen her, and trusted her. I already made my choice, she said softly. This ship is my home. The human smiled faintly, taking a slow sip of his tea. Then we leave at sunrise, he said. The next morning, the engines roared to life. The station lights faded into the distance as they set a course for the unknown. She stood beside him in the cockpit, her hands steady on the console. Once, she had been a forgotten shadow in a crowded market. Now she was part of something bigger. Her voice carried quietly through the hum of the ship. He didn't just choose me. He gave me a reason to live.